In this video, we're going to take a quick look at basic formulas in Google Sheets. That will cover mainly adding, subtracting and multiplying, and trying to explain a little bit about the basics of how they work. So if we were to take a spreadsheet which has some information in it, there are quite often times when we would want to get Google Sheets to automatically do some things with that data for us, like mathematical operations. It's quite straightforward if you understand the principle of how formulas work. So if we take a cell in a spreadsheet, take this example one which I've already created a formula in, and I highlight it, you'll see here the number which is displayed is 200, but that is the result of a formula that we've created, which is up here in the formula bar, and that says equals A11 times B11. So that would be this cell times this cell. So essentially a formula just allows us to identify specific cell references and tell the spreadsheet what we want to do with that data, or give it other things that we want to kind of work into that calculation, like other numbers or percentages and so on. So in this particular spreadsheet, I've just got some random numbers, and we'll just quickly show you how to add, subtract, divide, multiply, and also how to use brackets. There's not a huge amount of complexity to this. So the one thing I would just say is remember that with any formula, they always have to start with the equal symbol. That's the key thing that you need to remember. So every time you go to use a formula, always start with an equal symbol. So for example, if we wanted to add a formula in here that would add this value to this value, we would type a formula that says equals, and then we could either type the cell references, so we could type A2 and then use the asterisk symbol, which is the multiplication symbol for sheets, and then B2, or the simplest and quickest way is to actually just do equals, then click on the things that you want to be part of your formula, so the cells, should I say, that we want to be part of the formula, so A2, and then we would add the asterisk, that's our multiplication. You can see this appearing in my formula bar as well as here, and then click the second cell that we want. And if we hit enter, you'll see that that provides the answer here. And if we click on it, we can still see that we have our formula, and we could go up here to change that formula. For example, if we'd selected the wrong cell, or that changed later on. Subtracting, exactly the same. Equals, let's just take this, minus, so we just use a minus symbol, that cell, enter, and you see we get the result there. Divide is exactly the same. So if we do equals 1 divided by, and that's the forward slash symbol, 11, you'll see that we get that figure. And you'll note that because it has so many decimal places, we could go up here to the formatting and decrease that to a more sensible value. We have multiplication again, so equals, and this time, like we'd mentioned before, we would maybe choose which of our values. 1 times is the asterisk, and then 11. So that is all pretty straightforward, really. Now, one of the other advantages is that because when we quite often are using spreadsheets, we're working with lists of data, like you'll see here, there's a list of figures. Typing that formula over and over again would become really time consuming. And so we can either Control C to copy and Control V to paste, or just use the copy and paste buttons. And you'll see that it doesn't copy the answer, it's copied the actual formula. And as it's copied it down, if we look at the formula, you'll see that the rows here, it's automatically referred to the next row down. So this is called relative referencing. So you'll see that one is A2, B2, and you'll actually see there's this little blue dot. If we grab that and drag it down, that's kind of a quick way of copying a formula down through a series of different cells. And so you'll see that basically all that's done is it's copied the same formula, but it's copied it into these cells and it's updated the reference to the next row down. And we can do the same for any of these. You'll see if I can click and drag, it will take that. And because all of these would give the same answer, that's what we're getting. But you can check the formula, you'll see that that's B5, so it's in the correct row. Again, we'll just do that for the others here. And you can see it works. So you can really quickly use that to calculate things in a spreadsheet. And when you need to do more complicated mathematical operations, where you need to maybe take two sums, for example, and do something with them together, you can use brackets just like you would in a normal mathematical problem. So in this case, we're going to do equals, open brackets, this times this. plus symbol, open brackets, this times this. That will take the products of all these formulas here, and it will complete that sum for us in this final column. You'll see that quite often in Google Sheets you get this autofill suggestion here, which will give you an opportunity to accept that if what it's suggesting is correct, or to reject it. And you can then copy that yourself. So the last thing we'll talk about just quickly is looking at what we call absolute references. So say, for example, I wanted to find out what the percentage of each of these values was, say 3% of them. I can go into here, I can type equals, and as long as I've created a percentage here, okay, so we'll just have a quick look at that separately, just cancel the formula. If we put our figure in there and make sure it's formatted as a percentage, that's really important. We can just go in here and go equals that, whatever the value is, and multiply it by that percentage. And if we hit enter, that will tell us what 3% of this value is. However, you'll note that if we grab this and try and drag it down to copy it, we will get an error. Or at least not an error, we get an answer that we didn't want. And that's because as we've copied that down, we're multiplying it not by this value, but as we copy down each of these, you'll see that the reference has moved down from K2 to K3. So we're now multiplying it by an empty box. So to make this work, what we would actually have to do is use something called absolute referencing. And that means we would add a dollar symbol before the K and or the 2. You can use that to absolute reference just a row or just a column or both. So because we know we want that row and column in that specific place, we'll just add that. And there is a keyboard shortcut to do that, but we'll not go into it just now. So if we've done that, the formula still works, but you'll see that it has this symbol here, the dollar symbol, that makes it absolutely reference. So you can click and drag, and you'll see that now, if I look at any of these figures, I have a formula that says H3, H5, and so on, but it's always referencing K2. And that's how we make sure that it constantly uses that same cell to reference. In general, if you have any errors, always just go back and recheck the formula. Make sure you haven't mistyped something or forgotten a bracket or something simple like that. Or check that the data is in a format that it would be able to calculate. So for example, it's a number rather than text. And hopefully you should find it quite easy to start using formulas.